Have you ever heard of a wicked metamorphosis from a humble taxi driver to the mastermind behind a $1 billion illicit substance transporting empire? Enter Christy Kinahan, Ireland's Dapper Don. Join me as I delve into the enigmatic world of Christy Kinahan, known as the Dapper Don, and unravel the untold story of his relentless rise from the streets of Dublin to the pinnacle of the international underworld. In this episode, we'll explore the stark transformation of Christy Kinahan, witness his journey from a state of shock during his initial arrest to becoming an astute figure who manipulated legal perceptions. Discover how Kinahan transitioned from small-scale fraudulent activities to masterminding bids for military aircraft, all under the cover of humanitarian flight operations. This narrative delves into his ascent from the underbelly of petty crime to the architect of a complex international narcotics network, unveiling the calculated machinations behind his billion-dollar empire. How did Christy Kinahan become the Dapper Don? What path led a young taxi driver father in Dublin to become a key figure in the global trade of controlled substances, spearheading an empire valued at over $1 billion? Join us as we delve into the intricate network and operations that earned Christy Kinahan the title of Dapper Don, and examine the strategic moves that positioned him at the apex of a global narcotics empire. In the early 1980s, Dublin presented numerous opportunities, yet for Christy Kinahan, the role of a taxi driver was merely a stepping stone, not an end to his ambitions for greater wealth and influence. As a young father of two, Kinahan yearned for more, and little did he know that his quest for prosperity would lead him down a path fraught with danger and intrigue. Born into a middle-class background, Kinahan's life took a dramatic turn when he found himself drawn to the allure of a criminal underworld. It was in this milieu that he began his ascent, fueled by ambition and a relentless drive to secure his place among the elite. Kinahan's foray into the world of crime started innocuously enough, with petty offenses like car theft, burglary, and check fraud. However, it wasn't long before Kinahan's activities intersected with the increasing illegal substance trade that was taking root in Dublin's. The early 1980s marked the onset of a euphoric drugs epidemic in Dublin, fueled in part by the influx of narcotics from Afghanistan, which flooded European markets. This surge in availability of narcotics created a lucrative opportunity for those willing to capitalize on the burgeoning demand. Kinahan seized upon this opportunity with gusto, leveraging his newfound connections to establish himself as a key player in the euphoric drugs trade. With the arrest of Larry Dunn in 1983, a notorious Irish narcotic dealer who controlled a significant portion of Ireland's narcotic trade, Kinahan saw his chance to rise to prominence. With Dunn out of the picture, Kinahan stepped into the void, orchestrating narcotics shipments into Ireland and distributing vast quantities to street dealers. His business acumen and keen understanding of the underworld dynamics propelled him to the forefront of the illicit narcotic trade. To law enforcement at this time, Kinahan was primarily known as a fraudster, often involved in bouncing checks. Michael O Sullivan, a former Garda, described him not as a hardened criminal, but rather as a suave individual. According to Michael O Sullivan, former Garda, he wasn't a real criminal, but a suave sort of guy. He had acquired some expensive tastes by then: sports cars, nice clothes, and luxury apartments. It was this refined taste that earned him the moniker of the Dapper Don. As O'Sullivan delved deeper into Kinahan's lifestyle, he quickly realized that the income from bounced checks couldn't possibly sustain such lavish expenditures. It became apparent that Kinahan's wealth was derived from more illicit sources, likely from the substance trade. What set Kinahan apart from other narcotic dealers of the time was his unique distribution model. Rather than operating in the streets, Kinahan chose to run his narcotics operation from a rented luxury apartment, a strategic move that kept him largely invisible to law enforcement but only until 1986. The downfall and resurgence of the Dapper Don. From a feared leader to a target of global law enforcement, the journey of Christy Kinahan, known as the Dapper Don, is a tale of ambition, cunning, and ultimate downfall. Despite his low profile, Kinahan's rapidly expanding empire couldn't escape the keen eyes of law enforcement. In 1986, Sullivan, initially skeptical of the department's role in Kinahan's operations, eventually orchestrated a sting operation with his team posing as electricians. The team carefully crafted their disguise, ensuring every detail was in place to avoid raising suspicion, a testament to the meticulous planning that goes into such operations. Upon entering the apartment, they found Kinahan eating a sandwich. On watching them, Kinahan froze right there. When he was told that they were law enforcement, he said, "I'm sick as a parrot," which was a very English phrase. Isn't it rather surprising? This unexpected display of vulnerability raised eyebrows, highlighting the often unseen human aspect behind the formidable facade of the Dapper Don. As the Dapper Don, orchestrating a flourishing narcotic enterprise, one would hardly anticipate such a shocked reaction from him. He recognized Sullivan immediately, a realization that dawned on him with a heavy weight. And, with a measured tone, Kinahan remarked, "I was told to keep an eye out for you, Sullivan." As we close this chapter on Kinahan's unexpected arrest and cunning in court, a new chapter of even greater ambition and global reach was about to begin. Kinahan's criminal activities finally caught up with him when he was caught with $1,500 worth of drugs in Dublin. Between the time of his arrest and his trial, Kinahan spent his days learning Arabic and French and reading books. This period of introspection and learning marked a transformational phase in Kinahan's life, reshaping his worldview and strategy for his future criminal endeavors. It was a ruse to convince the judge that he was serious in turning his life around. It became evident when Kinahan's defense lawyer argued the same during his trial and presented him as an individual seeking self-improvement. Surprisingly, the judge bought into this narrative and sentenced Kinahan to just 6 years in prison, a seemingly lenient punishment given the severity of the crime. When Kinahan got out of jail, a lucrative opportunity was awaiting him. In the 1990s, South American cartels had begun laying the groundwork for expansive distribution networks in Europe, operating with the efficiency and scope reminiscent of multinational corporations. These cartels sought new markets as the US implemented stricter measures to combat the influx of narcotics, leading to the extradition of cartel members from Colombia. With their operations under scrutiny in their home country, Colombian cartels eyed Europe as a lucrative opportunity where law enforcement agencies were less focused on their activities. This shift marked a new era in the narc movement, with Europe emerging as a frontier ripe for exploitation by savvy criminal syndicates like Kinahan's. This period marked the heyday of Christy Kinahan's criminal enterprise and a turning point for Western Europe, as it signaled the onset of a significant influx of coke into the region. As South American cartels established their foothold, distribution hubs emerged across Europe, facilitating the trade in illicit substances. Among these hubs, Amsterdam stood out as an ideal location for expanding criminal enterprises. Situated near Rotterdam and Antwerp, two of the largest container ports, Amsterdam offered unparalleled access to international markets. Additionally, the city benefited from lenient border controls and the integration of European nations under a single currency, fostering an environment conducive to illicit trade. Recognizing the potential for immense profits amidst the shifting landscape, Christy Kinahan seized the opportunity to establish a presence in Amsterdam. This move wasn't just about geographic relocation. It was a calculated step towards transforming his operations from a national threat to a formidable international network. His release from prison in 1992 coincided with the burgeoning coke trade in Europe, presenting him with the chance to capitalize on the growing demand for narcotics. However, Kinahan's criminal activities did not go unnoticed, as he soon found himself entangled in legal troubles once again. In 1993, just a year after his release, Kinahan got arrested for stealing travelers' checks from a bank. After getting released on bail, he fled the country. This escape was not just a flight from immediate legal consequences, but a strategic move, marking the beginning of Kinahan's international expansion and the deepening complexity of his criminal network. Alongside numerous Irish criminals seeking refuge from law enforcement, Kinahan sought sanctuary in Amsterdam, where he could operate beyond the reach of Irish authorities. Despite facing ongoing legal challenges and outstanding charges in Ireland, Kinahan strategically navigated the criminal underworld. He leveraged his connections to orchestrate the distribution of narcotics into Ireland and the UK. While Kinahan remained on the radar of law enforcement agencies, his relocation to Amsterdam provided him with a degree of insulation from direct scrutiny. It was hard for authorities to monitor his activities. As he solidified his position within the criminal hierarchy, Kinahan's empire continued to expand across Europe, fueled by the lucrative opportunities presented by the burgeoning coke trade and the strategic advantages offered by Amsterdam as a central hub for illicit enterprises. With each move, Kinahan wasn't just expanding his empire, he was reshaping the very dynamics of the international substance trade. In 1997, tragedy struck the Kinahan family when Christy Kinahan received news of his father's passing, compelling him to return to Ireland for the funeral. This event, while deeply personal, also had profound implications for the Kinahan empire, underscoring the delicate balance between the personal and the professional in the life of a criminal mastermind. However, his return to his homeland was marred by legal complications, as he found himself once again facing arrest upon his arrival. Michael O Sullivan, the seasoned detective who had previously crossed paths with Kinahan during his criminal investigations, was tasked with interrogating him once more. A decade had passed since their initial encounter in the Dublin flat, where Kinahan had been apprehended, but now the tables had turned. This time, Kinahan remained tight-lipped and unwilling to divulge any information. However, before parting ways, he had one thing to say to O Sullivan. He said to the then Garda, "You think you're so smart, I followed you." This revelation didn't surprise Sullivan, as he was already aware that Kinahan had been keeping tabs on him since his release. Undeterred by Kinahan's brazen assertion, O'Sullivan provided him with the registration number of the vehicle used to tail him. It marked the final exchange between them, yet it provided a glimpse into Kinahan's mindset and approach to his criminal endeavors. However, Kinahan's story didn't end there. He would soon find himself behind bars once again, but like his previous stint in prison, he utilized this time strategically. During his incarceration, Kinahan embarked on a path of self-improvement and education. He enrolled in courses focused on law and expanded his linguistics repertoire, adding Dutch and Spanish to his skill set. In an unexpected move, he even pursued a degree, a departure from the typical trajectory of a career criminal. Yet, this unconventional approach would prove beneficial in his future endeavors. In 2001, Kinahan emerged from prison a changed man, armed with newfound knowledge and skills. Despite his absence from Ireland, his reputation preceded him, with local law enforcement agencies closely monitoring his activities. As Kinahan expanded his operations on a global scale, he became increasingly powerful and formidable. By 2003, the Kinahan organized crime group had established itself as a dominant force in the illicit narcotic trade, with significant portion of narcotic seizures attributed to their operations. Despite encountering brushes with the law and facing multiple arrests, Christopher Kinahan managed to evade substantial sentences, further solidifying his status as a cunning and elusive figure in the criminal underworld. This ability to slip through the legal net didn't just demonstrate demonstrate Kinahan's cunning. It exposed the challenges law enforcement faced in pinning down such a slippery and internationally connected criminal. In the mid-2010s, he built a consulting company. The motto on the website stated, "Being in the game is not as important as staying ahead of it." According to Miles Johnson, an investigative reporter for Financial Times, this is the guiding principle on which Christy built his organized crime empire. He was staying ahead of the game, thus avoiding repercussions for his actions. This strategic foresight allowed Kinahan to navigate the treacherous waters of the criminal underworld with an almost prescient understanding of risks and opportunities. He built operations in Spain, Holland, the UK, and Ireland, but his operations extended way beyond those countries. A 2009 leaked diplomatic cable from the US Embassy in Sierra Leone revealed that the Kinahan Cartel's tentacles stretched to Africa as well. In 2016, the Irish police make another startling discovery. A Dutch murder broker gets found in a Kinahan safe house in Dublin. The broker's connected to the elimination of a man who was on the run from the Iranian government for 30 years. This revelation not only highlighted the Kinahan Cartel's reach, but also underscored the complex web of international relations that underpinned their operations. It was a state-sponsored hit, a job usually undertaken by spies or special operatives, but this time it was linked to a narcotic cartel, the Kinahan Cartel. The Irish authorities didn't understand at that time the Kinahans were in bed with the Iranian authorities. However, they did grasp the gravity of the fact that the small-time crook from Dublin had transformed into a different breed of criminal. By this time, Christy had realized that his sons, Daniel and Christopher, with their impeccable records, could help him erect an international criminal empire. His eldest son would be his successor as the kingpin of the international empire. This succession plan underscored a calculated move to ensure the continuity and expansion of the Kinahan legacy, with each generation strategically positioned to propel the new empire to new heights. By this time, the organization had firmly entrenched itself not only in the illegal substance trade, but also in the realms of firearms trafficking and money laundering. Positioned at the pinnacle of the criminal hierarchy, the group forged alliances with high-level criminals from various corners of the globe. By 2010, Christy Kinahan had to relocate to another promising location, Costa del Sol, to establish his criminal operations. Similar to Amsterdam, but offering a more favorable operational environment, the coastal region proved to be an ideal hub for his illicit activities. With his enterprise moving loads of coke in Europe, he was raking in buttloads of money, and obviously all that money needed to be spent and invested. The necessity to launder these ill-gotten gains spurred Kinahan to innovate and diversify his operations, effectively embedding his criminal activities within the fabric of legitimate global commerce. In a legit economy, it's hard to move dirty money, and that's why Christy had to launder it. With his own money laundering enterprise thriving, he began to offer services to other criminals as well. The Spanish South Coast was teeming with thugs at that time. From Russian mafia to African criminals, all the gangsters had found safe havens in the sun and sangria of the place. Just like that, he turned his cost of turning black money into a white profit center. But by this time, Christy had come on the radar of the Spanish police as well. An international investigation opened up in 2006 into the Kinahan Cartel under the name of Operation Shovel. It ramped up in 2008 after the assassination of Dubliner Paddy Doyle. Although the assassination could have been the work of Russian mafia, Kinahans were also the suspects. The operation started off as cooperation between Irish, Spanish, and British law enforcement, but spread across Europe and to the US, Brazil, United Arab Emirates, China, Panama, and Dominican Republic. As profits flooded in and operations ran smoothly, Christy reveled in the benefits of his relocation. The illusion of untouchability began to take hold, with Christy Kinahan basking in the false security provided by his carefully constructed facade of a legitimate businessman. However, this period of prosperity was short-lived. as he soon found himself facing monumental trouble that could dismantle the mighty Kinahan Cartel to pieces. Join me as I delve into the scandalous arrest of Christy Kinahan in a well-publicized operation by Spanish authorities. House of Cards crumbling or reinventing, the saga of Spanish swoop. On a typical warm morning in Marbella, May 2010, Christy Kinahan lay peacefully in his bed, seemingly without a care in the world. However, the tranquility of the morning was shattered by the sudden onslaught of marching boots and the presence of armed officers clad in riot gear storming into his bedroom to handcuff the Don. This abrupt intrusion marked the beginning of a tumultuous period, as the walls of Kinahan's carefully constructed empire began to feel the relentless pressure of law enforcement. Not exactly an auspicious start to the day, is it? Little did he know, this was just the beginning of a downward spiral. The operation was a coordinated effort, with over 700 police officers simultaneously conducting search operations on residences and companies spanning across multiple countries, including Spain, the UK, Belgium, Cyprus, Brazil, and Ireland. Simultaneously, the Spanish Interior Minister confidently proclaimed the downfall of the Kinahan Empire. Little did he realize how gravely mistaken he was. Underestimating the resilience and adaptability of the Kinahan Empire would prove to be a significant oversight, as the unfolding events would demonstrate. The extensive search unearthed the complex web of networks involving accountants, fake corporate directors, and advisors, all functioning as cogs in the Kinahans' vast money laundering machinery. This intricate labyrinth of connections and financial operations laid bare the sophistication and reach of the Kinahan Empire, challenging the narrative of a mere criminal enterprise. More than 200 companies were implicated, contributing to an expansive property empire spanning from Britain to Brazil, valued in the hundreds of millions of euros. Described by the UK's Serious Organised Crime Agency as a global investment service for gangsters, the evidence amassed against the organized crime group was staggering, enough to ensure decades-long incarceration for those involved. Numerous arrests were made, including that of Christy and his sons, and footage of the police search operation featuring Christy in handcuffs circulated widely. Yet, the resilience of the Kinahan family and their network would soon manifest, showcasing an unanticipated level of fortitude and resourcefulness. It seemed as though the curtains were drawing on the cartel, marking what many believed to be the beginning of its end. The dice were rolled, and the world held its breath, awaiting the outcome. And when the results came in, they were nothing short of astounding. Christy Kinahan emerged from his jail with his sons and seamlessly resumed his illicit operations, as if the massive empire hadn't skipped a beat. Picture this, a criminal empire worth billions busted, only to bounce back with remarkable speed and resilience. How was such a feat possible, you ask? Well, it seems that a hefty sum of money coupled with top-notch legal representation can work wonders, especially when wielded by skilled hands. Not only were the Kinahans adept at navigating the legal system, but they were also excelled at counter-surveillance, maintaining a discreet barrier between themselves and their illicit activities. Once the dust settled from the sweep, Spanish authorities realized that apprehending Christy Kinahan would be no easy feat. The landscape of the criminal underworld had been irrevocably altered, setting the stage for a new era in the Kinahan saga. The paper trail left behind by the elaborate corporate front for the criminal enterprise was extensive, requiring cooperation from jurisdictions worldwide to access crucial documents linking Christy to the crimes. However, not every country was forthcoming with assistance, and even those that were willing would take years to provide the necessary evidence. Without the proper paper trail, the cases against the Kinahans began to crumble. Charges were dropped one by one, and the once promising investigations fizzled out, leaving law enforcement officials with nothing but disappointment. Instead of witnessing the cartel's demise, they watched in disbelief as their years of painstaking efforts unraveled before their eyes. Far from being dismantled, the entire episode served to embolden the Kinahan Empire, solidifying its position and reinforcing its resolve. The Kinahans became even more powerful as a consequence. Operation Shovel had revealed one more thing: that Daniel Kinahan was taking more responsibility in the group and was being groomed to be Christy's successor. However, Daniel was not satisfied with remaining behind the shadows like his father. He wanted publicity and to enjoy his clean record, which meant he could disassociate himself with his criminal enterprise while enjoying all the perks. So he created a white facade and started making space in the boxing realm with his boxing gym originally named MGM and then renamed MTK. But his major job remained helping his father in running the criminal empire. In February 2016, the meticulously crafted facade of the Kinahan Empire came crashing down in a scene straight out of a crime thriller. During a boxing weigh-in at Dublin's Regency Hotel, chaos erupted as three individuals disguised as members of the Garden Shahana's emergency response unit stormed the event wielding firearms. Pandemonium ensued as gunfire rang out, sending attendees scrambling for cover. The intended target, none other than Daniel Kinahan, who had assumed control of the enterprise from his father, Christy. Though Daniel managed to evade the attack unscathed, one of his trusted lieutenants, David Byrne, fell victim to the intense confrontation. The incident swiftly catapulted into one of the most notorious chapters in Ireland's law enforcement history, thrusting the Kinahan crime group into the national and international spotlight. It was later revealed to be a retaliatory strike orchestrated by a rival Irish gang led by Jerry the Monk Hutch, in response to a murder allegedly carried out by the Kinahans in Spain. Following the brazen attack, Daniel, along with his father and brother, sought refuge in Dubai. However, their escape offered little respite for the streets of Ireland. Over the next 2 years, a surge of violence swept through the nation, resulting in 18 fatalities and the thwarting of 40 other assassination attempts by law enforcement authorities. Unlike his father, who preferred to operate discreetly, Daniel adopted a more confrontational approach, drawing attention to the Kinahan group through a series of high-profile incidents. Despite conducting their criminal activities from the relative safety of Dubai, the Kinahans appeared on the radar of U.S. authorities in 2017. The extravagant Daniel Kinahan's wedding at the iconic Burj Al Arab caught the attention of law enforcement agencies. It was a who is who of the European narcotic underworld. Everyone connected to gangland was present at the event, from Ridwan Taji, Ricardo Raquelme Vega, aka El Rico, to caged assassin Nufal Fassi, and Italian Camorra boss Rafael Imperiali. Every big mafia name was among the attendants of festivities. In fact, the wedding list helped the investigators identify the super cartel alliance that had tentacles stretching across Europe. While Daniel attempted to whitewash his criminal activities with sports, Christy took a different approach by reinventing himself as an aviation consultant. Leaving behind the Kinahan name, he relocated from Dubai to Zimbabwe in pursuit of a fresh start. Presenting himself as a British businessman named Christopher Vincent, Christy operated as a manager, owner, and consultant in the aviation sector. His plans included setting up a humanitarian aviation business in Africa, alongside his long-term partner and their young children. However, Christie's attempts at a fresh start were thwarted when the U.S. announced sanctions against him, his 2 sons, and 4 associates in April 2022. This dealt a severe blow to the Kinahans, with the U.S. offering $15 million rewards for information leading to their capture. This step was to break the wall of silence kept by the public. The sanctions revealed the extent of the Kinahan Empire, valued at $1 billion, and its connections to notorious figures such as El Chapo and Hezbollah. Subsequently, the UAE imposed similar sanctions, further restricting the Kinahans' operations. In response to the sanctions, Christy, also known as the Dapper Don, swiftly closed his online accounts and removed information from his LinkedIn profile and consulting website. This was a strategic move to prevent authorities from accessing information about the companies he believed they had overlooked. Before that, he was very active on Twitter, where he promoted anti-vaccine and pro-Putin propaganda. In November 2022, it emerged that the notorious crime boss attempted to procure a fleet of decommissioned Egyptian military aircraft in a bid to establish a secure stronghold for his trafficking operations in Africa. Under the guise of a relief flight consultant, he engaged in negotiations with 4 senior Egyptian military officers, presenting a multi-million-dollar bid. Documents uncovered by Malawi's Platform for Investigative Journalism, PIJ, and International Consortium for Investigative Journalism, ICIJ, revealed that a Dubai-based company linked to Kinahan, Sea Dream Middle East General Trading, LLC, made attempts to purchase 9 used de Havilland Canada DHC-5 Buffaloes from the Egyptian Air Force in 2020. Further investigations unveiled similar efforts to strike deals in Latin America and Africa, including an attempted purchase of an Antonov AN-26 turboprop in Venezuela. It became apparent that Kinahan had been cultivating international relationships with established humanitarian aviation partners as a cover for his illicit activities. However, the Egyptian aircraft deal ultimately faltered due to financial constraints, leading to the collapse of negotiations in September 2021. This setback impacted his efforts to establish an African air network centered around Yasa Air. However, all these endeavors were dealt a severe blow when the United States imposed sanctions and Dubai froze his assets. After having their assets frozen, the father-son's trio is still on the move. Reports suggest that they're conducting high-level meetings in Dubai and offering transport routes to Russia and Iran in return for protection from Western authorities. The Irish authorities have been escalating efforts to repatriate criminals back home, which is proving to be hard because of the lack of an extradition treaty between Ireland and UAE. As they amp up their efforts, the Kinahans are reportedly deepening their ties with Putin and Iran, seeking sanctuary amidst mounting pressure. They're said to be funneling funds into the Russian economy, aiming to secure a future in the country and evade Western authorities. Their value for these regimes hinges on the viability of their transport routes, with the Garda intensifying negotiations for a prisoner transferred pact and seizing contraband shipments linked to the Kinahans. The noose is tightening. Can the Dapper Don continue to outmaneuver the long arm of the law as adeptly as before? As the public awaits with bated breath, the lingering question remains: how long until the Kinahans' luck runs out and their empire comes crashing down?